Welcome to Red Brick's analysis of tonight's Guild Council meeting. I'm Freddie Herzog and I'm joined by Owen Earwicker to provide comment and features analysis of tonight's events. We will be first looking at what motions went through Guild Council and which were rejected. The first motion that was examined tonight was to change the name of the Old Mentor's office to the McCartney Room. This was rejected with a 67% majority against. 25% of candidates were in favour and 7% abstained. Owen, what was your view on this?
Well, I thought, admittedly, a lot of people may think that this isn't an important issue. I just feel bad for Ollie Costantino, who wrote the motion. He deliberately asked at the last Guild Council for it to go ahead to this one because it wasn't important enough at that time. I feel bad for him because he's worked so hard on it, and it's alright. It might be a little bit of a folly, but it could have gone through. It doesn't. All this contention. A lot of the councillors were complaining about that Paul McCartney or Linda McCartney weren't deserving enough for the title. I don't see an issue with that. Okay, there are other people who might be more deserving. I don't think it's up to the council to decide who is more deserving of that.
Do you not think perhaps it might have been a good idea though to have a referendum on it, to have a referendum on changing the name rather than just immediately changing the name to something immediately?
Potentially, I just don't think anyone really, doesn't really matter. I'd rather it was called the McCartney Room than the Old Mentor's Office.
It does seem another kind of outdated title, certainly.
Yes, but it also seems very silly that the council was so anti it. It didn't hurt the council to pass that motion.
Okay. The next motion was motion 8E for the Guild to be as democratic as possible. This was accepted with a 50% majority, 43% were against and 7% abstained, so a very close and tight motion here. Again, Owen, what did you think about that?
Why is it a debate that the Guild needs to be as democratic as possible? I don't know why it was brought forward as a motion. Perhaps we need to know more about the circumstances behind it, but it seems, isn't that something that we should be doing anyway? Why are people producing motions for that? Is the Guild not democratic enough at this point, and why is that the case?
It did seem also that with 50% in favour and 43% against, it did seem that almost the councillors, those who voted against, were being undemocratic by deciding that they were going to be against a democratic principle. It did seem kind of very paradoxical, I thought.
I don't have anything else to add on that. It was just a silly motion.
Okay, the next one was 8A, as there were a few requests to move motions forward because of various issues. So 8L, which was the Mentor's office room change name issue, was the first issue, and then we had the democratic issue, which was moved forward. Then we went through the motions as was seen on the list, as was published in the night. Motion 8A was for the Guild to enact active opposition to racism and fascism. This was accepted with a 57% majority, 41% candidates voted against, and 2% abstained. Again,
this was the the issue with the Arif officer. Yes, it was
Yes, Ben Iliad, the anti-racism and anti-fascist officer.
There was a lot of contention about which organisation it was they were working with. I think the motion needed to be thought through a lot more before it was produced, and that was shown by the fact that an amendment was needed to be made during the debate. I think it should have been thought through more before it came to
I think judging by the size of the text in the motion, there wasn't very much text in there. There could have been a lot more explaining exactly what was needed to be done. It seemed like a kind of a rushed motion.
I got the impression also that the people who proposed the motion hadn't really consulted with the Arif officer, and
hadn't
it seems to be that
emailed.
That would be my first point of call. If I was going to do an anti-racism, anti-fascism motion, I'd go to him.
It also seemed very odd that the anti-racism, anti-fascist officer stood against the proposal for more active opposition to racism and fascism. In Guild Council, if a motion is raised, you have to have people running for it and against it for it to pass as a democratic motion. And this, it just seemed odd that he was standing against it when actually he should be in favour of it. And it just, again, it suggested a very rushed and ill-considered motion.
Yes, I agree.
The next motion was motion 8B, amending guild policy to include a statement on an individual's right to protest. This was accepted with a 59% majority, 37% were against, and 4% abstained. So there will now be a statement in guild policy on an individual's right to protest. This is in relation to the occupation of the North Gatehouse on campus, which occurred a couple of weeks ago by students.
Was this the issue where Mark Harrop stood up and argued about that he took the against argument for it?
Yes, he did.
Yes. He mentioned that there was something about the motion removing the term legal, so that the guild would be supporting the right to protest, regardless of whether, in the eyes of the law, it was legal or illegal. Mark Harrop was very concerned that the guild might lose the charitable status if it's seen to be supporting an illegal protest. I can see his point on that, but I don't know, it seems to me that the guild should be putting students first. If it's a legitimate protest, the protesters should be supported by their student union.
There did seem to be a lot of confusion about definitions, so whether what actually was a protest and what was, for example, illegal trespassing. And there was a lot of definite sort of conflict of interest about what definitions of certain things there were. The final motion that was up for debate was for the Guild Council Chair to enforce a disciplinary policy for the fair use of language in Guild Council. This was rejected with 72% against, 28% in favour and 0% abstaining. This was in relation to, it was raised by Vicky Royal, the Satellite Sites Officer. It was in relation to use of swearing at the previous Guild Council. She thought it was inappropriate to use swearing at Guild Councils. It was not an appropriate forum for it.
Yeah, I think this motion was completely ridiculous. It seemed to me that Vicky Royal wanted to talk down to councillors. I mean, I accept that Guild Council is not the place to be swearing, but I also accept that if they want to swear in the place where free speech must be guaranteed, there should be an issue. I don't this whole yellow card, red card system that she was trying to pass through.
I should probably explain, what she was proposing was effectively a yellow card system if somebody swore for the first time. If they swore for a second time, they would get a red card, which would mean that they would then be asked to leave by the Guild Council Chair, which this year is Johnny Dolan.
I thought that there are enough, the Guild Council Chair has the power to remove members who are behaving out of line. I thought that's fine. I don't think that there should be, slaps on the wrists for words. I just think it was such a silly motion.
Yeah, I think also it is worth pointing out, Guild Council tonight, it was supposed to start at 6, it started at 6:25 and it went on with 2 15-minute gaps until I think about 11:15. It is a very long, tiring process, and I think that if somebody is passionate about an issue and feel forceful enough about an issue, then they should be allowed to have the free speech to use whatever sort of language they want in that.
And it's something that's being offensive, something that you find offensive is exactly that, you find it offensive. It's not something that the whole council finds offensive. I don't find certain swear words offensive, I accept that other people do, but it's not. Well,
as shown by the massive majority who voted against it. I think it was 72% voted against it, which just shows, I think that was the highest motion of tonight, with an imbalance. It just seemed ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting that it seems to be an accepted point that motions that tend to break boundaries, tend to sort of like shake things up a little, tend to pass. I think though when we were listening to the motion, listening to the arguments about it there and then, everyone could see it for what it was worth, and you know, it was.
I think it was really shown when somebody asked, a counsellor asked, how are you going to force somebody to go out if they don't accept what the chair says, and there was the issue raised about whether they would have security in the room or not. The chair, Johnny Dolan, said quite emphatically, we are not having security in Guild Council, which I thought was perfectly right. You shouldn't need security in Guild Council. There is security in the Guild anyway.
Yeah.
And her argument crumbled, I think, at that point.
Yeah, it did. But points for her for trying, I guess, but maybe try something to do with satellite sites, which is her job after all.
Yeah, it did seem a little unrelated.
Yeah.
Moving on to, we're going to sort of now discuss our general thoughts of what, this was our first time at Guild Council, and we're just going to kind of generally discuss what we felt Guild Council was like, and what sort of,
Yeah, I mean, I found it a very interesting experience. I'd been told beforehand by various people that don't get your hopes up, it was going to be a long drag, it would be very boring, you'll be sick of it by the end of it. Alright, it was long, there are a lot of tedious points. I found the whole process though very interesting.
I think from our point of view, when we were live blogging it, we always had something to do. There was always something going on. There was always, whether it was a procedural motion, a motion itself, debate, whatever. There was always something going on. I can accept if you're a counsellor, and people have got degrees to do as well, and all the other stuff. I think it is too much of a long, drawn-out process.
Yes.
And I don't think that's helped by the fact that there has to be a vote on whether to move the vote forward.
Yeah.
On the actual, if there's a motion vote, you have to vote to bring the motion forward, which just seems.
I mean, the procedural motions, on the one hand, they do seem very time-wasting, but there was a point where my colleague and I just thought, thank God for that procedural motion.
Yes.
Because we're moving out of the debate, we've heard the arguments so much, it's just, thank God we're moving on. So, it's a mixed bag of procedural motions. They do waste a lot of time. There is a lot of time wasting generally in the Guild Council process, but there are a few golden moments when the procedural motions make life a lot easier for everyone there.
Definitely. No, I definitely agree with that. I think though, I was speaking to Johnny Dolan after the event, and he was saying that you were going to have a limit of 3 questions for and against, which will, I think, streamline things a lot better.
Yes. There were a few other issues with time wasted though. For example, I understand that it's a great opportunity to plug sabbatical and non-sabbatical officer elections. I just questioned whether those 15 minutes we had to listen to the VP DR Hugo.
Yes.
Talking about the elections and promoting why people should stand and so on. I don't see why that couldn't be done in a separate event in itself. It seemed to take up an unnecessary amount of time.
Yeah, and also a lot of Guild councillors are also on the Better Student Groups forum. They are also on committee positions in their own societies. Hugo spoke at the Better Student Groups forum, and I can understand wanting to promote it as much as possible, but it did seem in an area where you're trying to streamline as much as possible, it just seemed completely out of place, I thought.
Conversely though, ironically that I'm making this point, opposed to the time wasting, there is an issue with people talking too quickly.
Yes.
I mean, that might be from our point of view, because we're trying to get things down on the live blog, but I don't know where do you find the balance between time wasting and speaking too quickly and getting through things?
There's also an issue of a lot of people had to be reminded to speak their name and candidate role which just seems
Yes.
again time wasting, and also an awful lot of people couldn't be heard in the room. The Guild Council Chambers is quite a big room, but it is designed so that everyone can speak in an open forum. It's designed in a sort of C shape with the chair sat in the middle, and there were an awful lot of things that we couldn't really hear going on, which might just be something to do with the design of Guild Council, I think.
Yeah.
So that's our sort of post-match analysis.
Did you say my highlight of the Guild Council?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, there was one, a censure brought against the ethnic minorities officer for quoting Leviticus 18:22 on his Facebook status. There wasn't a lot of context given, but the fact that I don't know, I mean, quoting it, the quote refers to stoning to death men who lie with other men. I don't know the context behind it, but the censure passed because, quite frankly, he shouldn't be quoting it. I don't know what he should be using it in any context.
No,
really.
I think it was posted on a Facebook page,
right?
With the Bible reference, so where it was from in the Bible. I think that was put on. I don't know on what I know it was a Facebook page, but I don't know in what context it was done.
It was interesting though that it passed 76%. We wanted to know though who were the 24% who thought it was acceptable for a guild officer to post something like that.
Yes.
On a social media platform. That was my highlight.
I think my highlight would probably be the humorous elements in the Guild Council. So there are people tweeting all throughout, and there are people tweeting about how many windows are open, which I thought was hilarious reading them. Window report, only one open window. We need to get it open. It's really hot in here.
Yes.
Things like that might sound very jokey and sort of undemocratic, but I thought it did.
They really do help.
Lighten the mood.
They help, yeah. And Rob Sassoon, Deputy Chair of Guild Council, putting on the hat.
A very tall, pointy Santa hat.
Yes,
I thought that was
that
good.
That would help, yeah.
So for more analysis of our of Guild Council, there will be articles going up in the next few days on the Rubric News site and Rubric Features site.
Yes.
So if you'd like to check those out, they will be going up in the next few days. But for the time being, I've been Freddie Herzog.
And I've been Owen Earwicker.
And thank you very much for watching. Good night.